Okay. Wow. That we did not expect this, but here we are. We're live. Billy Eppler has officially resigned as the Mets general manager after we were expecting him to be in the front office for the foreseeable future under David Stearns. It looks like that will not be the case. We have a few theories as to why this may have happened, and we'll talk about it after the intro. So Mets, we've got some stuff to talk about. All right, let's go. All right, so I'm joined by Andrew. He can only be here for a little bit to give his little 2 cents. He can only be here for like 7 seconds. So you have 7 seconds. Go ahead. What do you got on this whole situation? We'll wait for people to come in here and let me know. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we're shocked. I'm literally sitting here on lunch, and I get the Twitter notification. I'm like, well, that dog's gone, so there's no more bringing in a bunch of 40-year-olds to the top of the rotation. But just maybe this is bad now. Maybe we don't get Yamamoto because this man is the Japanese whisperer, gets all the great Japanese talent to come over. Now he's gone. So, am I surprised? Am I shocked? No. Am I surprised? Kind of, because again, that's all Cohen said since the Stearns news came out, that he was still going to be the guy under Stearns or whoever the president of baseball ops. He was going to be the guy under him, and that's all we heard. Hell, even we heard it yesterday, or heard it say it at the Stearns press conference, like, Eppler be under me, and then just out of nowhere, he just pulls the reverse Uno card and says, "You know what? I'm out of here." So, am I heartbroken? No. Is it a voice in the front office now we have to fill again? And it seems like every year now we're looking. Now it's not president of baseball. Now we're looking for another GM. Is Stearns going to pull kind of a Kyle Dubas and just say, you know what, I'll take both? Because, again, I keep correlated to hockey. Well, the Penguins, Dubas was president of baseball. If they wanted to hire a GM, they took forever and they couldn't find a GM. And then Dubas took over. So is Stearns going to do the same thing this year? And then look for one, try to have a search for a general manager. And then if he can't find it, does Stearns just take the GM job this year and then push it back another year? I doubt it, but it's just, again, I'm not surprised. Am I happy? A little bit. I'm just sick. I'm just, especially with that article about him forcing Vogelbach, that, maybe that was kind of the
get into. Yeah.
Maybe that was the last nail in the coffin. But I did see some reports saying that maybe he wants the Red Sox job and have like kind of a full role in Boston. So maybe that's it. But am I heartbroken? No. Am I happy? A little bit. But again, like everybody's been saying, this is the David Stearns era. If David don't want you here, get the hell up out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's only right for someone to come in, especially since he's the new president of baseball operations, the first ever in Mets history. It's only right for him to pick his own guys. And we all know that Stearns has been on the radar of Steve Cohen for a long, long time, probably even before he considered purchasing the team, to be honest. We all know about David Stearns and his reputation of what he's been able to adapt from other different clubs and help them be one of those supplemental pieces to them winning World Series titles in the future. So it is weird considering, the trajectory that we were kind of on as to when Billy Eppler was hired. We saw that he was really, really good friends with David Stearns. So it was definitely very shocking. But the fact that we, in the last 24 hours, we went from a very, very quick measure to the Mets front office. And I think that pretty much just describes how quick and how instantly they want to get this stuff done and go, straight to work once the off season starts. And, the playoffs are going by really quick. I mean, we've only had 2 days and the entire first round is done because you have teams in there that don't even fucking belong there. Don't even get me started on that Mickey Mouse crap of the wild card round. Should have just made the wild card game and do a best of 3. Instead, we need to give participation trophies to everybody. But what I really saw from that whole article with Daniel Vogelbach and Buck Showalter and Billy Eppler kind of butting heads on that whole thing, yes, okay, maybe Buck Showalter didn't want to play Daniel Vogelbach because I know he loves a lot of versatility. He loves the old school players, blah, 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 blah. Buck Showalter, I don't think is a good manager either way. So I don't really think I don't think that he just gets completely left off the hook here. What that really told me was at that point we knew that Billy Eppler, he was going to stay. He was going to stay underneath David Stearns. What that told me was Daniel Vogelbach is going to be here next year. That's what that told me yesterday when we got that article about Daniel Vogelbach being a Eppler guy, not being a Showalter guy, Showalter wanting to keep him out of the lineup, and then Eppler wanting to keep him out of the lineup, Eppler staying, and now Eppler is the one who, stays here, and not to mention David Stearns was also an executive who traded for Daniel Vogelbach back in 2019, I believe. 2020, 2019, I don't know, somewhere around there.
There's
so
19,
when you heard those connections and you heard Billy Eppler being such a great friend of David Stearns from the beginning, and then you also saw him, sign Omar Narvaez as well, who Stearns also traded for. You saw him get Daniel Vogelbach. So you're like, okay, maybe these guys are in a good connection right now. You just saw David Stearns yesterday in his press conference just say, I'm excited to work with Billy, this and that. So this is where the shocking factor comes in, where Billy Eppler just resigns out of nowhere. Is it possible that the New York Post did a lot of damage yesterday to the possibility of the image of Billy Eppler? Maybe. And listen, Daniel Vogelbach, we all know that, he does limited things right, and it's possible that, maybe that does screw around with Billy Eppler's future as an executive. And, all I can say is that I don't think it was great from the beginning. I think we talked about this from now, but, what do you think? What do you think the whole motivation here? Do you think he just wanted to leave? Because, it seemed like Eppler and Stearns were like there,
Yeah. And again, I've been seeing, obviously reading a bunch, but it does kind of make sense. And like, again, you look at other sports, you bring a new GM in, it's kind of stuck with the manager thing. And so it's like you bring the new president of baseball up, where you can say, like, it's kind of the same thing with Counsell, where like we automatically all thought, well, Counsell worked with Stearns, that their relationship is fine. Maybe that's not as good as we think it is. And maybe the Eppler and Stearns thing doesn't work. And like I mentioned earlier, maybe Eppler has an eye on that Red Sox job. Maybe there's another job. Who knows? Again, San Diego is to be determined. They said Preller and Melvin are going to be back, but who knows with that team, and who knows who else gets fired? I'm not saying like Tampa Bay or any of these are the wild card teams, but who knows what other opportunities can come out. And if he went from being the guy with the Mets, which he was Cohen's right hand, to now he's second in that pecking order, that doesn't have final decision anymore. And you think of a guy, and ego of course has to come into it, saying, hey, I've been the guy making the final decisions, and now I have a boss ahead of me. So, and if an opportunity comes up where I can be the guy again, maybe he wants the Red Sox job. Maybe there's something else, or maybe hell, he just doesn't want to be a part of it, be under a guy. So am I shocked? No, but again, we'll see what the relationship is, and maybe it's all fabricated. We've seen the relationships of that's written of, they're great friends, and you realize, maybe not. Maybe it's just all a PR thing. So it's just kind of weird, especially the timing, like you said, with that hit piece on the Daily News or wherever it was. Kind of Cohen sees that, and like the New York Post or whatever.
New York Post always doing it. Yeah,
always the goddamn New York Post. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, and again, now where does Stearns go? And I think this is definitely something that they brought up. Now he can pick his GM, his manager. There is a clean pipeline. There is no, and that would have been Eppler kind of a kink in that pipeline, because if Stearns hires guys he wants, they're his plan. It's going to be on his timeline. With Eppler here, he's going to have his own pipeline, his own, he had an idea to build this team. If he did it right or not, he had his own plan, and then now Stearns comes in and says, "No, what your plan absolutely sucked. Now it's my plan." Would you want that? And it's like I said, the ego has definitely got to be involved, and maybe that was a bad look. And Cohen says, "You know what? Not the greatest look, and kind of a little Metsy to think about. Oh, the GM's got to play the fat guy over an athletic young kid. That's not a good look." So, yeah, definitely. It's weird. The timing is. I mean, I prefer this timing, and it's kind of weird. It's like there's no baseball today, but here's some baseball news. So like, Epler's had to be.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing about the Mets. Shit just continues to flow in the offseason. Unless they win a World Series, things are going to continue to flow even while the playoffs are going. I mean, that's just literally.
But it's also weird that there's no games today because there's no games and Epler just decides this now. Like, so I don't know.
It's better. It's better early than never.
Well,
it's better early than late.
Getting it cleaning out before the last out of the World Series.
It's better than just what was it like? At what point of the season with the pandemic going on when we had to just let go of Carlos Beltran? It's not something that's coming into emergency. So I'm glad that they got that out of the way at that point. And you know what? I'm not upset about the possibility of him just not being here. I'm not a big fan of Eppler at all. I never thought he was a good GM. It just seemed like the eighth or ninth choice. Now, this brings into my other question. I'm going to ask the chat this. I'm going to ask you this, and you'll let me know if you have any more time to.
Yeah, this will probably be the last one. So far away.
So we all know about the one guy that was out as an executive as well. You bring up Boston. One guy that has been really successful as the guy behind the guy. Could that be a possibility to be the new GM of the Mets in Chaim Bloom? What would you say as that?
I'm probably in the minority. I don't hate it because he's not the final decision maker. I like that he would be a voice, not the most powerful voice, but he would be brought in, and I'm completely fine with just bringing in that juggernaut of a front office, of bringing in guys who do things well. And obviously Chaim didn't have the greatest, trading Mookie Betts for a bag of, Alex Verdugo and a bag of balls, pretty much. The Trevor Story deal wasn't great, but you put him with David Stern, and that's kind of how, again, these are Power Rangers. Build a Megazord of just great baseball people. That's all I want. He doesn't have to be the main piece because obviously now we've got Stearns as that guy, but to bring him in, too smart, and he is a smart baseball guy. Yes, did his decisions work? No, but the fact that he wouldn't be the top voice, I like that a lot more than when he was given in Boston, where he's the final say, it's all him. Where to balance it out of okay, here's Stearns' perspective, here's Chaim's perspective. Obviously we'll get some more names throughout. I'd still, Josh Burns is still obviously one of my guys. I don't know if it'd be,
Josh Burns.
I love Josh Burns. I've made that clear 2 off seasons ago that when we headlined Epler, that was my guy. So, we'll get to the candidates and we'll have, the next month to talk about it, but his name's going to be brought up. I don't hate it. I know a lot of people will because of what he did in Boston, but the fact that he's not the majority, I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, I was mapping out actually the podcast for, Sunday. We haven't been doing episodes of that. We've been kind of inactive on here, mainly just because the Mets have just been a little bit draining, and we've kind of just needed to take the refresher. And also, it's just kind of the same stuff over and over and over again, how many times we can repeat ourselves. But I was writing down some stuff, and I was prepping everything about the first story we were going to talk about was the Eppler and Showalter clash about this whole fat whale in the lineup and
waste of fat, as Frank about sports.
Waste of fat. As we said, just that was just 6 great seconds of a 3-hour live stream that we had earlier this week. If you guys have not seen that, we gave our final grades of the players for the 2023 Mets that obviously failed and underperformed. I started not liking Eppler once he lied to us fans last year's deadline. What was the breaker for you? Was it the robust reliever market? What? I'm just tired of having a GM that just talks shit. Like, I'm just tired of that.
Yeah.
And we got a taste of that during this week. I mean, Brody Van Wagenen, saying stuff about Zach Wheeler. And it's just I need a guy who doesn't talk and just actually does stuff and has an actual thought process, and hopefully Stearns is one of those guys to do that, and we'll see where he goes with his GM hire. So I believe you have to go,
Yep.
as you just referred to me.
Yeah.
So I'll
make a short or some shit when I get home, so you can add to the discussion.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we'll do
good
something.
News.
Yeah.
Hi, Ep Dog. That's all I gotta say. Thank you for Daniel Vogelbach and Brooks Raley. I guess he gave us Brooks Raley, so I can't. And Kodai
Thank
Senga.
you for Senga. Yeah, Senga he got. There you go.
So there you go.
He got one gem. All right.
One gem.
I see you, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just revert to this. Jeez. Man, my head just got huge. All right. Pete hired Boris today. Yes, I did see that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that on the podcast. Obviously, I want to get the 2 cents of Andrew and Frank as for that too. But yeah, Pete hiring Boris. Not surprised about that at all. I can tell you right now, that was not surprising at all. I think I mentioned that about his pending free agency like last offseason. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he saw what his guy Brandon Nimmo got. I mean, Brandon Nimmo, as much as of a great player he is and how he broke out, I mean, from what he was performing at, especially with his injury history, I mean, he didn't deserve 8 years. Like that was that, and that's what happens. And I think a lot of Mets fans are not really freaking out as much about it, mainly because the relationship that Boris and Cohen have kind of built. It's not really the fact that they are friends. I don't think that they're really best of friends, but I think that they are, both great businessmen. And I think, great businessmen have a tendency to, get along. And to be honest, I mean, I think it's not really much of like Boris loves Cohen. I think it's just more of where Boris is just kind of like, he needs Cohen. He needs Cohen to drive up that market for his players. And he's going to go to Cohen to bring that up. I mean, because if somebody offers something, that Cohen would be willing to top it, or you have to at least ask. Like, let's say like the bidding of Shohei Ohtani. We all know that everybody's going to be talking about this during the offseason. If somebody gives him a $475 million offer, Boris, if Boris was representing him, Boris would be like, okay, would you go 480 to drive the price up to maybe, like that? That's how he's going to play in the market. And that's pretty much how Boris, views Cohen. He can basically play out that market. And if Cohen wants him, Cohen's going to get him, right? So there's an advantage there. But you always have to prepare for a player to leave when they are a Boris client. That's just how that is. And that's another reason why we talk about Juan Soto all the time and why I would not trade for them, trade for him. This is the time of year where all these rumors start. Yeah, of course. I mean, that shit's going to just continue to go back and forth. We know, Pete hires Boris, Eppler resigns. Things go quick. That's just kind of how it is, especially in New York. That's just kind of how the New York media goes. Things go very, very quickly, and it keeps you engaged, and that's what a big market is. For those of you in here who have not liked the stream, please do. Be nice. Greatly appreciated. I might start a poll here of who you would want working under Stearns. But you know what? I'm gonna actually save that because I have another idea. Um, but yeah. So yeah, this is I can honestly say that this was kind of weird though. It definitely was kind of weird because we kind of expected Eppler to be here, right? And um, you know, that's kind of weird. I mean, I'm not upset about it. I don't think Eppler is a good GM. And I don't think he should still be here, but it was just kind of a surprise as to, you know, what we were hearing for so long. But it is funny because, you know, Andy Martino ends up being wrong again. Andy said that Billy Eppler was staying, and it's funny. I don't know. It just that's funny. That's funny with me. Yeah. Thoughts on Pete Alonso signing with Boris? You can actually rewind like a few minutes. We were just talking about that. But what I was saying was like, I'm not shocked. I'm really not shocked. I think if Pete Alonso wanted to be a Met, he would eventually sign an extension, but it's going to have to be a massive overpay for him to not go to free agency as a Boris client. There's only a select few players that have signed an extension with their respective teams. And Pete Alonso does fit in that caliber of category, you know, the Steven Strasburgs of the world, the Jose Altuves, that kind of category. Then you have guys like Juan Soto who are in a different caliber of player where his market is so big that he has to test free agency as a Boris client. So Pete Alonso is obviously in that second tier where, like, if he wants to stay with the Mets, he could stay with the Mets. I'm not counting on it being a guarantee right now. I don't know if this was a message of hardball or something. You know, a lot has happened in the last week where we've kind of just drawn up a lot of uncertainty, especially around Pete Alonso. Billy Eppler, it's already been talked about. You know, Pete Alonso being upset about the whole situation with Buck Showalter, with him going. I don't know if the Mets just forced him to step down. I mean, it seemed like they did, especially with the way that it's kind of been delivered with Buck Showalter. Kind of him talking with Mike Puma, it seems like, for, you know, what Billy Eppler was thinking of doing in the lineup with Daniel Vogelbach. So it seemed like the Mets kind of forced Buck out of there, which, to be honest, I'm fine with, because I just don't think you're going to win a World Series with him at the helm. I don't think you're going to win a World Series with Billy Eppler in your front office. So, I mean, it's just kind of odd. I would say it's just been very, very odd, which I think at one point it's going to resolve itself, like everything with Pete Alonso and everything with Buck Showalter. I feel like it's all going to eventually resolve itself, but we're getting this real back and forth where the Mets aren't in the playoffs. You have this media kind of just being thirsty for this whole situation. You know, we saw, what was it? Was it yesterday? We saw the Mets are rumored Pete Alonso may want to go to the Cubs. Like, this shit just continues to escalate over and over again. It's a wild ride. So it's not official until you know, Jeff Passan tweets about it, or, you know, maybe the Post article about Vogelbach did him. It may have, but, you know, he resigned, so I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe, you know, maybe Cohen saw this article come out. And you know, maybe he was just like, okay, it's either you resign, or, you know, we're going to have some problems or something. I mean, he I don't know if he asked him to resign or something. Because it was weird, because we saw David Stern's press conference. He talked about how he's excited to work with Billy Eppler. So there must have been something that happened in the last 24 hours with that. Or Eppler just planned all along to resign. But, you know, there was also a possibility where it's like, yeah, you know, Eppler was also talking, you know, about the Mets' future and how, like, they weren't going to be competitive or this or that. But, you know, maybe there's a possibility that, like, you know, we talked about how Eppler maybe possibly lied to Max Scherzer before the trade deadline, you know, about the Mets' future of that just to get him out of here. Or maybe it was just a possibility that Eppler just doesn't know what was going to go on. You know, he didn't know what his future was either. So he was just kind of making it up as he went with Max Scherzer in that trade deadline. I think Eppler did what he could do at the trade deadline. He definitely could have done more. I think he should have traded a few other guys. But, you know, you also have to talk. You have to put it in perspective of where, you know, he was trading away guys. That was the mess that he created. You know, he may have redeemed himself a little bit, but, you know, this was a failure. It was a failure for him as a GM. And listen, I understand that they won 101 games last year, but, like, we're here to win a World Series, right? You don't bring up this big of a payroll just to lose in the first round and just to win. Did they win 75? Because I guess they counted the game. I actually have to write that down as a thing. But did they count that as, did they win 75 games? How many did they win? 75, 74? I don't know. If Pete wants Judge money, he's not going to want Judge money. He's not going to want $40 million a year. I can tell you that. Is it possible you give him $30 million a year? Maybe. It is possible. $25 million is probably the highest I would go a year, but, you know, if he ends up getting 26, 27, I'm not that upset. I mean, the thing about Pete is that we need Pete a lot more than he needs us. So the Mets will probably be willing to overpay. I mean, I would be willing to overpay for Pete, more in AAV than actual years. You know, the highest I would go, you know, obviously would be 8 years with Pete. But if he wants 10 years, I'm not going to hesitate to give that to him. You understand me? Y'all get what I mean? Eppler might poison the well by warning Shohei Ohtani to not sign with the Mets. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm not. Listen, I would love Ohtani. I would love Soto. I mean, everybody would want somebody on that. Anybody would want anybody like that on their team. Two generational players. But I'm not prioritizing them in free agency. That's not going to happen. I think that the Mets are in one of those positions where they have to deepen the team. You know, there's other guys. Pete has a huge ego and thinks more of himself than he really should be. I think that he thinks of himself just enough, personally. I think he loves being a Met here, but I mean, you also have to realize they didn't really do him many favors throughout his entire career. I'm going to tell you right now, he's been fantastic for us. And in my opinion, I think he's the best hitter the franchise has ever seen. The home run ball, you know, the 40 to 50 home runs, that doesn't grow on trees, right? So that's not something that, you know, you take lightly here. The Mets should have extended him years ago. Let's be real. But Pete has every right to hire Scott Boras. I mean, everybody has any right to hire Scott Boras. Scott Boras has a proven track record of getting money for their clients. Is it a pain in the ass? Yes, but the money is the money. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, that's, I mean, if you are in that top 2-tier caliber and you're a star, I'm definitely trusting Boras to get me my money. Absolutely. You know, if you're coming off of a career year, Boras, that's the guy to go. You know, I was kind of expecting Shohei to hire Boras at one point. Pete is somewhat of a loner, although that I do believe he wasn't a team guy. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I think Pete just I don't know. You never know. You don't know what's going on in that clubhouse, but from a lot of teammates that have talked about him, I personally think he has a lot of right, to be honest. After how much he has done, and he continues to do, and it doesn't seem like he has any signs of slowing down. So, you can pencil him in for 40 home runs every year, right? So, Mets need to do what the Braves are doing, signing players early. Alvarez being first. I would hold off on Alvarez. I would let him get a second year, or maybe you do it going into this year, but I would let him play a second year, and then I would give him. I think I want to see a full season of him first. But if the Mets want to do it, again, I would not be opposed to them doing something like that. I think the Mets should stay away from Juan Soto. He wants Ohtani money, and he ain't worth it. Juan Soto. I mean, if I were to fully break down Juan Soto, I do think he could be a lot. You could understand Pete wanting to be a Cub. I don't believe any of that. I really don't believe any of that, to be honest. Because it fixes in and out. Like, every single week, we hear a new story about Pete Alonso because he's coming close to free agency. We hear, he's a clubhouse cancer. Nope, he's fine. He loves being here. He's mad with Buck. He likes Buck. He loves Buck. Now he wants to be a Cub. He hires Scott Boras, and now he's gone. It goes back and forth that, like, it's hard to keep up with the consistency whatsoever, right? I'll believe it. I think I'll believe it when I see it. Obviously, we need to see, it's a free agent year for Pete Alonso. We'll see if he gets it. Yamamoto, we'll see. I don't know. I would love Yamamoto. He's on one of the tippy top of my list for the offseason. I would love to have Yamamoto. I think he's a fantastic pitcher. I think he might be even better than Senga. Not gonna lie. He hired Scott because Scott would get him most money. Exactly. Yep, he will. Not really big on Soto. I think Soto as a player, if I were to get into the lab of talking about this, Soto as a player, I think that he could be a lot better than he is because of how talented he is, and he's not, and he doesn't do it. But I'm not gonna fully get into that. I'm gonna stay on here for an hour, guys. I've been here on it for a half hour, but I'm gonna continue because I got some other stuff to work on. But for those of you who are just joining us, Billy Eppler has resigned as the Mets general manager in shocking fashion. Because 24 hours before we saw Stearns ready to, play the game with Eppler, but I'm not upset about it. I'm not really upset about it. For those of you in here who have not yet liked the stream, subscribe if you have not. Paula, what's going on? Bye, Billy. What did Soto do for the Padres or Ohtani for the Angels? Well, not much because it's a team game and you need a 26-man roster. So it depends on how much it's worth it, but the Mets have the flexibility to do it if they wanted to do it. So I'm not opposed to getting either of them. If they want to get both, be crazy, get both. Wouldn't be opposed to that. Yeah. Eppler gone. Vogelbach days with the Mets are over. I hope so. I really hope so. But let's not forget David Stearns did trade for Daniel Vogelbach as well, so maybe he thinks highly of him as well. But God, I hope so. I talked about this in the stream a few days ago where we grade player grades. You guys can go check it out. That was the last stream that we did. You can't justify Daniel Vogelbach staying here. Baseball is not like the NBA where one player can win you a title or compete a year. Yeah. No, you need two sides of the ball. You need good hitting. You need good pitching. You need a competent front office. You need a lot. Baseball's tough. That's why we don't really see dynasties that much. You know, we've seen teams be competitive every single year, but we don't see them win it and dominate every single year, right? I'm crossing my fingers for Craig Counsell. Listen, I think Craig Counsell will be a good hire. I'm not clamoring for him, to be honest. I personally, I don't think the manager matters as much as people think it does if the roster is as balanced and as, you know, like I don't think the manager matters as much if you have depth and you have a deep team, right? I mean, we've seen that kind of proven with Dusty Baker. I don't think Dusty Baker is a great manager. But he had a deep team. He had a lot of talent. He had a lot of guys who were made for the postseason on that roster. So I don't think that matters, you know, if you have, you know, a deep team. You know, like Brian Snitker, I don't think is a fantastic manager. He just has a lot of talent on that Braves team. They're top to bottom great, right? Buck gone, Eppler gone. I predict next Mr. Met gets escorted out of Citi Field. Well, I'm pretty sure Mr. Met, what was it, 2016, 2017, flipped off the fans, and he still exists now. So I think we'll be okay. I think he'll stay. I want Beltran. Beltran's another possibility. I mean, that kind of, there was a possibility. It opened where, you know, they were going to talk about guys who haven't managed before, and they were going to talk about guys who have managed before. They were going to, you know, talk about the whole spectrum of possibilities. But yeah, Beltran, there is a possibility that he could be considered. I wouldn't do it, but that's a whole other thing. Don't forget Mrs. Met. Yeah, Mrs. Met is the thing now too. Yeah. Wally Backman. I think Wally's going to retire. As much as I love Wally, I think Wally's hilarious. I think he's awesome, but I would go a lot younger. After needs to go next. I could not agree more. Thoughts on Chaim Bloom or Sidge? Yeah, we actually talked about Chaim Bloom back at the beginning of the stream. You know, I think Chaim Bloom is a good baseball mind, but I just don't think he's the guy. I think he's a guy behind the guy. So I think him as a possibility as a general manager for the Mets, I think it's something that you could look forward to as a possibility. Nope on Beltran or Wally. Yeah. I saw in the Vegas odds for the Mets' new manager job, I saw Keith Hernandez as plus 10,000 or something. That was pretty funny. Y'all imagine Keith as a manager? I would laugh my ass off. I really would. I watched the review you guys did on players. It was great. Please do one on players in the farm system. Yeah, we did have one. We did have one video that we were going to do. And then that got disrupted by other things that I was doing that had nothing to do with the Mets. And then also, I got COVID and got knocked out for about a week and a half. So, couldn't do that, but we will talk about prospects, eventually. I want Keith in the booth. Yeah. Keith is going to stay in the booth. Don't worry. He's signed to stay in the booth, I think, for the next 2 years, I believe. Keith is too lazy to be a manager. Sorry to hear that. It's all right. Listen, it wasn't as brutal, but still knocked me out. I'm a baby when I'm sick, so it sucks. Hernandez would be a good hitting coach. Yeah, I don't think so. Not in this day and age. I want the Mets to sign Shohei Ohtani and Pete Alonso contracts extension. Oh, yes, I would love that. I would love that to happen, buddy. I'm with you. Time being would definitely be great for attacking the pitching side of things. Possibly. Not, he wouldn't be a good... Yeah. Why would I say that? Very old-fashioned hitting, coach. That would be. If you hear him on the broadcast, he's talking about, flicking things over the shortstop's head. Like that's not going to happen. You got to pull fly balls here. That's how we do it. My heart would be broken if Pete Alonso left the Mets. I mean, listen, Jake leaving sucked. But we'll move on eventually. But if he does leave, he does leave. There's no such thing as loyalty these days. It's very rare. It's all about the money right there. We dodged a bullet with Jake. Yeah, it's possible we did. But I will never take away what Jake did for this franchise. He was one of the most incredible pitchers I've ever watched. The most incredible pitcher. Pete Alonso is very important to this team, though. I can tell you right now. It's a different situation because, DeGrom was always hurt. We always had that question of that. Maybe at the end of the season last year, he was falling off a little bit. He wasn't looking like himself. He was still good, but he just wasn't looking like himself. He's 35 years old, right? Pete Alonso, right now, he's 28. He'll be 29 when he's a free agent, right? And he's shown no signs of slowing down, continues to put up 40 to 50 home runs, every single year, right? And, they need Pete. These 40 to 50 home run guys, they don't grow on trees. You can talk about Mark Vientos, but he has not proven anything at the major league level. He could play first base, sure, whatever, but he hasn't proven it. That we can't be plugging in prospects, right? We can let Pete go because we have Ryan Clifford, right? We can let we don't need to sign Correa because we have Brett Beatty, right? That shouldn't be, guys who haven't proved anything at the major league level and are not ran away with the job, right? The same thing with Alvarez. That's when that was the thought process of signing Omar Narvaez, right? You know what I mean? So, because, he didn't prove anything at the major league level, but then he took it, he ran away with it. It's not Mejdal, did I say that right? I don't know. I've seen his name a lot. That would be a decent pickup, in my opinion. I think that would be a really good play. I think the hitting development in Baltimore is not bad. I think it needs a little bit more building on it, but I think the hitting development they've definitely found a way to get a lot of hitters. I love what they did with Anthony Santander. That's one of my favorite players in the game. I watch every game. You do not understand why everyone says Pete is not good defensively. Scoops everything. He has good range. I don't see any poor defense. I'll disagree with you on that. I don't think he's a great defender, but he's serviceable, and you can live with him at first base. In my opinion, you can live with him. I don't think he's a good defender though. But you don't really need an elite defender at first base. That doesn't have much value. The tool that has the most valuable, stance in this day and age at first base, and it's always kind of been like this, that would be power, right? Yeah. If you want to look for my test, I mean, it's fine. I mean, listen, a good defensive first baseman is not something that we're really clamoring for. If the guy is stone hands at first base but hits you 50 home runs a season, I don't care. I really don't care. And that's the same thing that goes on with Pete Alonso and his, the way he carries himself. People talking about him being a doofus and everything and him being really stupid. We talk about this all the time, all right? Pete Alonso, he's not the smartest guy. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed at all. So a lot of the stuff that he says, you kind of want to just hit him in the head with a frying pan. But to be honest, whenever he embarrasses himself or does something stupid, the guy could literally play in a 2-2 play in a thong, sing, I feel like a woman at the top of his lungs. He could do that. But if he continues to hit 50 home runs a year, I'm fine with it. I don't care. He can do whatever the hell he wants, right? As long as he's not doing any criminal activity, I'm fine with it. There's a lot of action at first base, yeah. But, I think Pete's serviceable enough. I think he got better from the beginning of his career. I think he got better as a first baseman, but I still don't think he's great. He's serviceable. You can live with it, right? Why is Pete Alonso is the only power hitter? The Mets, yep. That's because the Mets refuse to get anybody to bat behind him that actually is a prolific 30 home run hitter. Daniel Vogelbach hitting 30 home runs in the juice ball era season in 2019, that's not going to cut it, right? Pete worked at getting better? Absolutely. Absolutely he did. I'm a huge Office fan, so I love the name Michael Scott. I don't know if that's with actual intent or that's your real name, but I like the name. I must be watching a different Alonso. In what way does he have his hands of stone? Listen, if you're watching Pete, he's funny to watch defensively when he dives, when he runs. He's just not the biggest agile guy. He's very clumsy. And you know what? That's part of his charm, I don't think, statistically, I don't think he's great. But you can get by with it. Again, it's all per positional adjustment, positional value. Main thing I'm looking at is his offense. If he's hitting 50 home runs a year, he can do whatever the hell he wants, right? Can't wait until Pete can do a clean double play. Yeah, there's some like there's brain farts with Pete. Listen. But, we've seen him make up for it a lot with his bat, right? He's no John Olerud, but love the home runs. Yeah, exactly. No one's John Olerud. Why is Daniel Vogelbach still on the team? I don't think are they allowed to release anybody? Are they allowed to release anybody yet? No, what was like are they allowed to release anybody on the 40-man roster? Listen, if Pete wants to be a DH, he could be a DH, but I don't think he's going to market himself as a first baseman, obviously, when he hired Boris. So, Bogey's a free agent. I don't think, no, is he? See, I've been having this debate, because on Spot Track, it said that he was a free agent and he had an option or something. I can't tell, but you got to have those controllable players, right? Is he a free agent? Bogey was funny. I don't know. I think there's so much of a lack of talent there that just frustrates me that I'm not. Yeah, so it says he's a free agent in 2025, so it looks like he's still here, right? Another ridiculous commentary is Nimmo is not an excellent center fielder, aside from his arm. I think Nimmo's a plus center fielder. 1 year left of him. 1 year. Yeah, exactly. So they still have 1 year of control. Your wife loved Vogue. That's the thing. It's a novelty. We've talked about it with Vogelbach. We're brutally honest here. I mean, if he wasn't fat, no one would care, right? No one would care. No one would care. Mike Scott is a name no Mets fan should like. The sound of it. Oh, no, I was talking about Michael Scott, not Mike Scott. Mike Scott's that's a different alter ego. Yeah, Mr. Scuffballs. We don't like that dude. What manager do you think make good sense? I mean, listen, Craig Counsell will be fine. I don't think that there's a perfect manager for anybody, to be honest. I think it all just really has to do with roster construction. Right, the Mets were on a one-way street with Billy Eppler. I just think he's a perennial loser GM, and then you had Buck Showalter's a perennial loser manager. So, you know, you were gonna have those you know screw ups either way. Trade Vogie. Vogie traded for a broken bat. Yeah, I'd be fine. I it's hard to justify him coming back next year. If I were to put a guess on it, I don't think he comes back next year. But I also see a possibility where he does, because the Mets will never surprise me. I want the Mets to kill the Braves by signing Shohei Ohtani. Maybe. You know, the only way to beat the Braves is with home runs. Do you see McGill and Peterson in the rotation in 2024? I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna do that. I think Peterson. I don't think Peterson's good, but he's shown that he was able to bounce back. But we haven't seen like a consistent great year from him. We've seen a lot of blow-ups. We talked about this before with guys like Dom Smith. You know, the first round picks. How long are you gonna last with it? McGill's a little bit different. He came in a little bit later, and I actually do still believe in McGill. Because I think that he has good stuff at his best, but he looks like a completely different pitcher. So there's both inconsistencies with both of them. Can we make Lindor the team captain? No, because he just stole money from this franchise. So, you know, if you ask the typical fan, batting average is too low. Can't happen. They need some relievers and get rid of those batting practice pitchers. We must answer the rotation problem first. Oh, absolutely. I just want a manager who has cojones to tell a pitcher to retaliate after. Yep, that'd be nice. Peterson for a left-handed pitcher. Yeah. Nimmo for captain. I would be totally good for that too. Nimmo's a great guy. Thought we needed Eppler to get Yamamoto and Ohtani. I think we need Steve Cohen's money to get Yamamoto and Ohtani. Drew Smith experiment needs to end. You're preaching to the choir. That dude sucks. Buck was a zombie. Well, I feel like I need a manager that has actual instinct, right? Actual instinct, and it's adaptable, right? He doesn't have like a full-on plan mapped out or anything, writing in his little book, you know, like Buck Showalter was doing. You know, if he needs to adapt to something, he needs to adapt to something, right? A guy that responds quickly, you know, doesn't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. Vogelbach can run fast, but only chase food. Senga will help with getting Yamamoto. I mean, he talked about that as a possibility. Daniel Murphy for hitting coach. Yeah, no, thank you. Jeff McNeil sucks ass. We need to get rid of Jeff McNeil. Go off, King. Go off. I'm tired of Jeff McNeil too, buddy. Don't worry. Nobody wants to hear that. Craig Counsell, please. Can work. Again, I'm not storming to get him. Again, I just need an adaptive manager. That's it. I'm not talking about a yes man, but I'm talking about, you know, someone who's willing to adapt to this game. Because I don't think Buck Showalter was one of them. Someone who, you know, puts their best pitcher in when they need outs. Stops worrying about the next game. Puts their best starter in game one, right? Doesn't look at this lefty-righty crap, right? It's stupid. I mean, the lefty-righty thing is good, but how about here's a strong possibility, right? How about we get guys who can hit right-handed pitching and left-handed pitching. I know, it's fucking crazy concept, isn't it? No platoons, no shit like that. Bring back Callaway, 100% I would do that. Callaway was a champion. Let's stop getting limited players. How about that, right? Give me guys who can provide a lot of offensive value and not limited offensive value. And it doesn't get as limited as Daniel Vogelbach, right? A guy who can walk against right-handed pitching. Callaway, what a disaster. We didn't realize how big of a disaster it was until after he left, like a year later, after that whole scandal broke out or whatever about him, you know. And that was after the whole thing with Jared Porter, too. And yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, I mean, I kind of get it. If you were going to talk about Callaway being a creep, I kind of get it, you know? Mets have 5 top 100 prospects. Eppler acquired 4 of them. Yeah. I like Gilbert. Cunha, I don't really care for. Jet Williams, meh. Alderson was a total mistake. I don't think they really had a choice. Billy is the worst GM that I don't think Billy was the worst GM that we had. But I do think that he wasn't good. I don't think he was a good general manager. I could have told you that before they even hired him, though, because of the track record he had in L.A. For those of you in here who have not liked the stream, please do. It'd be greatly appreciated. There's a lot of you in here. Hit the subscribe button if you have not already. We're going to be starting up the podcast this week once again. I think it's episode 28 of the podcast. Eppler paid. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Okay. If he didn't have Steve Cohen's money, he wouldn't be able to pull off what he did. Right? The worst GM in the worst GM the Mets ever had was the guy that was addicted to sex. I forgot his name. You're gonna to be honest, you're gonna have to be more specific, because you had Jared Porter, who was a creep, right? He's on MLB Tonight. Was it Duquette? We talking about Duquette? Jim Duquette? Is that who you're talking about? Eppler helped the Angels get Ohtani. Yeah, he also helped the Mets get Senga. You know, like the one after Duquette. Fuck. Was it Mania? I don't think it was Mania. The only thing he did was trade. Yeah, that's what I mean. I think every single GM that we've had has made a good move, but it needs to be a conglomerate of good moves, right? Like Mets, like if you were to look at Mets general managers, they all had their headlining move, right? Was it the guy that traded for Victor Zimmerman? Maybe. I'm trying to look at the list of general managers here. John Ricco? Is that who you're talking about? Steve Phillips. Okay. Yeah, he was before Duquette. Yeah, like, you know, Billy Eppler got us Senga, right? You know, Jared Porter got us Lindor, right? You can say Brody Van Wegenen, you know, he gave us Edwin Diaz, right? Can you say that? I guess JD Davis, maybe Sandy Alderson, you know, Nimmo, like drafting Nimmo, you know, like everybody has their headline move that was good, but you know, you need good amount. Eppler resigned, just like, but yeah, exactly. The white hair guy. a good GM should be a good GM should have a good batting average, not 1 for 10. That's the best way to put it. Listen, I'm not a big fan of batting average, but listen, if you want to use it for GMs, yeah, and you also can, a good GM can also win, right? With Trout and Ohtani and Rendon on their roster too. Alderson was Nimmo, Pete, Mauricio, Vientos, McNeil. Oh, see, he's the guy responsible for getting that gerbil-looking fuck second baseman on this team. Vientos, it's a little early to say that it was a good move. But Pete was Alderson. You're right. Was Nimmo? No, actually, Nimmo was Minaya. Never mind. He was drafted by Minaya. That was the last year of Minaya. Minaya also got DeGrom. Any options you have if Council's not the guy? Joe Espada is a possibility. I know we've talked about him before. It seems like we have a manager conversation every single 2 years, right? So we have some candidates. I would like it to be someone who's not older than 60 years old. Nobody mentioning Wally Backman. Again, I already said this. I love Wally Backman. I think he's awesome. I think he's hilarious. I think he's a great leader, but I'm not going to go that direction. Vientos drafted in 2017. He was Alderson. Yeah, he was Alderson. I'm just saying, like, it's too early to say that Vientos was a great draft pick, Oh, no. Wally Backman's hilarious. Wally Backman is hilarious. The new manager is Nimmo's 4th manager in his career. Evan Roberts, the guy from WFAN. Joe Espada. Yeah, Joe Espada's a possibility. Gabe Kepler's available if they want to go that direction. Who's going to take the GM position now? Maybe it could be Heim Bloom. We talked about that earlier. Zach Ross. Yeah. Wally wouldn't take shit from pitchers hitting the Mets. Now Vogel trash playing every day. Or what makes more sense? Yeah. Winning makes an average manager look great. Exactly. And the Mets won a lot. And a lot of the key parts of why the Mets won in 2022, they weren't here. Like the bullpen decisions that Buck Showalter was making, they were terrible. But he got bailed out by Edwin Diaz a lot. Nobody wants to admit that. Everyone wants to call Buck Showalter the Hall of Fame manager. Just because you've done it for so long doesn't mean that you're fantastic. Felt like Buck was not the issue. I wish he stayed. Feel like the culture just took a shot in the heart. I just don't think Buck is a good manager. Here's the thing. I don't really care if he was the problem or not. You're not going to win a World Series with Buck Showalter. That's already been proven for 22 years. Mets lineup was the BABIP Kings. Yeah. Wonder why we didn't see this coming, huh? Nobody saw that coming. All right. I think I'm going to hop off here, guys. I've been live for an hour. For those of you who are just tuning in, I'm sorry. You can watch the replay, the thing of all of our thoughts. Andrew was here for about 20 minutes. So it has not been very consistent as for content on the channel, and I apologize for that. We're starting to figure that out. We're going to have a new episode of the podcast this week, so look out for that. It will premiere when it does premiere on Monday. And then, and then we'll obviously go live for news like this that you're seeing right now. And for those of you who have not liked the stream, please do. Off season is coming up. We've got tons of content coming. And let's go Mets. One more time. Billy Eppler has resigned as the Mets GM. He is out after 2 seasons in the Mets front office. So see you guys next time. Once again, let's go Mets. Peace out. Thank you for those who have tuned in, and we'll see you guys next time.